The billionaire tech mogul walked out to applause, dressed in his signature black blazer and expressionless charm. Jimmy Kimmel greeted him with a... From the start, the interview felt more like a chess match than a chat. Kimmel opened with soft questions about Neuralink and Tesla's newest innovations, but his tone sharpened when he brought up recent controversies, tweets, lawsuits, political donations. Musk, visibly irritated, began to lean forward, not toward Jimmy, but toward a defensive stance. "If you want to talk about cars or rockets, I'm game," he said, eyes narrowing slightly. Jimmy chuckled nervously, replying, "We'll get there. Elon, just trying to cover the full U." The audience laughed, but unease settled like fog. Something was brewing beneath the studio lights, and the crowd could feel it. What began as awkward tension escalated quickly when Jimmy pulled out a printout of Elon's most recent tweet, one in which Musk had mocked a disabled activist who criticized the labor practices at SpaceX. "Some folks would say this comes off as punching down," Jimmy said, holding the paper like it was evidence in court. Elon's jaw tightened. "It's called free speech," he shot back. "You're in comedy, right? Thought you'd understand." That the audience gave a few half-hearted chuckles, but they quickly faded. Jimmy didn't blink. "Yeah, but even comedians have limits," he replied, "or at least taste." Elon stared at him for a moment cold, calculating, and then leaned in. "You don't get to be the morality police while making a career off mocking people, Jimmy." The air thickened. That was the moment it stopped. A clash between power and platform, between the man who builds the future and the man who jokes about it. The energy in the room curdled. Elon's defenders in the audience tensed, while others leaned forward, eyes wide, unsure if they were watching satire or a spiraling feud. Jimmy raised both hands, palms out. "I'm just trying to understand the line between trolling and truth," he said, voice still composed but laced with steel. Elon didn't back down. "You're not interested in truth," he said flatly. That line, meant to dominate, backfired. The audience hissed, not loudly, but enough to shift the mood. Jimmy's face darkened, and the sarcasm dropped. "I've had powerful people on this show," he said, "but not many with your ego." Elon tilted his head, an eerie smile creeping. "An ego built this country, and your studio runs on my satellites." The audience gasped. The crew froze. For a heartbeat, it felt like time halted on. Then Kimmel's voice came out, low and sharp. "Security." It wasn't scripted. The look of alarm on the producer's face confirmed that. The security team stationed off camera hesitated, unsure if Kimmel was serious. He asked. Jimmy didn't look away. "No, I'm asking you to leave. You don't need this circus. And frankly, neither do I." The moment fractured reality for the audience. Was this performance art? A stunt? But the fury in Jimmy's jaw and the emptiness in Elon's eyes were real. Jimmy folded his hands. "And billionaires over decency," he replied. Elon scoffed, turned on his heel, and walked off stage, the thud of his shoes echoing like war drums. Cameras caught every second. The internet caught the rest. By the time Elon reached the lobby, the story had already splintered into a million interpretations. Hashtags exploded. Musk meltdown, Kimmel clapback, free speech fraud. Some hailed Elon as a truth-teller, silenced by woke media. Clips of the confrontation flooded TikTok, YouTube. Political commentators leaped in. Comedians debated the ethics of humor. Think pieces were being drafted in real. Legacy media is dying. Good riddance. It got over 100 million views. But what Elon didn't expect was the counterpunch. Jimmy posted a still of the moment, captioned, "Sometimes power doesn't mean you get to stay in the chair." That quote was screenshotted, framed, and made viral. It was more than a spat, it was symbolic. The fallout hit hard. Jimmy's team received a flood of emails, some full of praise, others filled with threats. ABC released a tight-lipped statement, saying the incident was unplanned and regrettable. Elon's companies went into damage control mode. SpaceX's board released a statement distancing the company from personal opinions expressed during the appearance. Tesla stock dipped briefly before recovering. Meanwhile, fan factions formed like medieval armies. Musk loyalists launched a boycott of the show, while Kimmel's followers dug up every questionable Musk tweet from the last 10 years. The confrontation had peeled back a layer of civility the world didn't realize was so thin. Now, every word mattered, every silence too. And both men, no matter how powerful, had revealed cracks in the personas they built. Elon's next appearance, ironically, on a podcast hosted by a former MMA fighter, was carefully choreographed. He framed the incident as a win against narrative manipulation. But even his hosts looked uneasy when Musk doubled down, saying comedians were irrelevant, jesters clinging to dying platforms. The backlash worsened, not because of the insult but because it proved he hadn't heard the world's message. Kimmel, meanwhile, was invited to speak on a panel about modern media ethics. His comments were self-critical, thoughtful, and honest. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I just drew a line, and maybe more people need to start drawing theirs." That quote was picked up by late-night rivals, newspapers, even satirical shows. It rang louder than any viral tweet. Jimmy hadn't just survived the encounter. He'd transformed it. By week's end, Musk had launched a poll on X asking, should comedians be canceled if they offend billionaires? The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Kimmel responded with a monologue that walked the tightrope between sarcasm and sincerity. Elon, ever the strategist, threatened to launch his own talk show, one without filters, without lies. Without comedians, it was hard to tell if it was satire or serious, but either way, it didn't matter. The moment he was escorted off, Jimmy Kimmel's set had already defined a cultural fault line. The confrontation cemented itself as a media milestone, not because of its aggression, but because of its truth. Elon Musk had walked into a studio thinking he'd control the narrative. But he'd forgotten that even late-night hosts have limits. That sometimes a chair on a stage isn't a throne. And that public patience for billionaire bravado is thinning fast. College courses used the clip to dissect power dynamics, and viewers, for once, didn't walk away entertained. They walked away thinking Elon didn't just lose his seat. He lost the illusion that tech could shield him from criticism. And Kimmel, he proved that a punchline could still be a weapon. In the end, no apologies were exchanged, no reconciliations made. The world kept turning. Rockets were launched, jokes were told, markets rose and fell. But in the undercurrent of internet culture, something had changed. The confrontation between Elon Musk and Jimmy Kimmel wasn't just a viral moment hit, was a mirror. One that reflected what happens when power is challenged, not with violence, but with words. Not with yelling, but with refusal. And in that reflection, millions saw their own moments of silence, surrender, and swallowed protest. And maybe they stood a little straighter the next time someone tried to talk over them. Because if the richest man in the world could be asked to leave, so could anyone.